I love it. I will. Quincy, paying attention to math now? All right, we'll put the news away. We don't care what's going on in the world. All we care about is we're going to find the sine of 150 degrees.
I'm with it.
Now, this is hugely important because it's going to show up in later chapters, believe it or not. Sine of 150 degrees. Notice the first two at least, I do circles for you. We're going to be drawing circles to draw our angles in. All right, now here's how this works. When we measure angles, and I think we already talked about this, but in case we didn't, when we measure angles, we start here. This is 0, 90, 180, 270, and then back around to 360. So we're going to start by figuring out, we're going to draw 150 degrees. So we start here, this is 0, this is where you start. Here would be 90, here would be 150. Would everybody agree with that? Somewhere around this would be 150? It doesn't have to be exactly, it's somewhere in quadrant 2. Get it in quadrant 2. Now we're going to make our butterfly bow tie. Every time you draw a triangle in your circle, you will either draw this triangle if you're in quadrant 1, this triangle if you're in quadrant 2, this one in 3, this one in 4. You're always going to have one of those triangles. Don't even think about drawing a different triangle. Okay? Now, here comes the part where you have to have your thinking cap on. Clayton, did you have a question? Okay, your hand was up, I wondered. Well, it's up there. Now, here comes the hard part, or the thinking cap part. You need to figure out this angle. The angle inside the triangle at the origin is the key to the problem. So can you figure out, knowing that this is 180, and knowing that that's 150, this is 150, can you figure out how big that angle is right there? 30. Because don't you have to go 30 more to get to 180? Now look, you got a 90. When you build the triangle, it's always going to be a right triangle. So you got a 90. You figured out 30. That would make this one 60, right? So we're going to label the sides of this triangle. We know what the labels are. It's a 30, 60, 90. What are our sides? What do I put across from the 30? 1. Across from the 60? Root 3. Across from the 90, or the hypotenuse? 2. Now, here's where you got to stop and think. If you are not in quadrant 1, something is going to be negative. I am not in quadrant 1. So something in this picture is going to be negative. And it will never be the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is always positive. So can you look at that situation and tell me what you think might be negative? The root 3. The root 3 is negative because here's the origin and we are to the left. Left is negative. Now, what about the 1? It's going to be positive because up is positive. Left and down are the negative directions. So that root 3 is negative. Now, I want the sine of that angle. Sine, SOHCAHTOA. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. That's the important angle. The opposite side is 1. The hypotenuse is 2. The answer to the question is 1/2. Next, repeat the process. We're going to do exactly the same thing. Only this time, the angle is negative 240 degrees. Uh-oh, wait a minute. backwards. This is the way we normally go. This is positive. Go up and around. That's positive. If you have a negative angle, you need to go down and around. So this would be negative 90. We always start in the same place. That won't change. So that's negative 90. This would be negative 180 if I'm going backwards. This would be negative 270. Okay, now wait a minute. What angle do I want? Negative 240. So isn't it going to be in between the 180 and the 270? So this is negative 240. Now remember, when you draw your triangle, it's always like this. It's always one of those. Never anything else. You got to figure that out. Now be careful. You got to figure that out. Think about it. To here was 180. To here was 240. So how much extra is that little bit right there? 60. We went 60 degrees past 180. Can you see that? So this is the root 3, this is the 1, this is the 2, because that's another 30, 60, 90. You're always going to use those numbers, 1, 2, root 3, over and over and over again. Is anything in the picture negative? Yeah, I'm not in quadrant 1. Something's negative.
The 1.
The 1 is negative. Left is negative. If you're over here, your x side is going to be negative. Now you want the tangent. Tell me what the tangent is. What's the tangent of that angle? Root 3 over negative 1, which you can write as just plain negative root 3 if you want to. Now I've thrown in another little glitch. And I didn't draw the circle, so you're going to have to draw your own circle. 5 pi over 4. We got to change that to degrees, don't we?
Yeah.
So we remember that pi is 180. Divided by 4, 180 divided by 4 is 45. Times 5 is 225. Very, very good. So we're going to draw a positive 225 degrees, which means we are going this way, right? Austin, what are you wearing back there? So 0, 90, 180, 270. I always label those because it helps me figure out where I'm going to put my 225. 225 is going to be between these two, right? So down it comes. It's somewhere in here. 225 is somewhere in there. Don't worry about getting it in exactly the right spot. Just put it in the right quadrant. And then your triangle looks like that. Remember, it's, oh, I erased them, but it's got to be one of the butterfly bow tie triangles. And then you got to figure this out. This is the key to everything. So here's 180, and here's 225. How much difference is there in there? 45. So now we have a 45, 45, 90 triangle. And what are our sides? 1, 1, root 2 on the hypotenuse. I stop. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I'm not in quadrant 1, so something has to be negative. What's negative in here? Both the ones. Both the ones are negative this time because left, down. Now I'm ready to do tangent. What's tangent? Opposite over adjacent. So that would be -1 over -1, which is 1. Here we go again. 3 pi over 4, cosecant. 3 pi over 4. Don't worry about the cosecant, let's do the 3 pi over 4 part. So pi over 4 is, well, pi is 180, divided by 4 is 45, times 3, 135. Good, so we're going to draw our circle. And that's 90 and that's 180 and 135 is going to be right in between them. Perpendicular is going to come straight down. Now, John, you got any idea what that angle might be? Kind of look at the situation. That's 135 and that's 180. So what would the angle between those be? You can use the calculator. You need it. Yep, very good. 45 degrees. So we got another 45, 45, 90. Now, every time we do this, we're going to either get a 30, 60, 90 or a 45, 45, 90. So you're going to see the same numbers over and over and over again. 1, 1, root 2. The only thing that'll be different is where you put the negatives, because that depends on which quadrant you're in. So what's going to be negative here? The 1 on the bottom, just the 1 on the bottom, your left. The other one's up, it's positive. All right, now we're doing cosecant. Cosecant is reciprocal of sine, right? Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So what's your cosecant going to be? Hypotenuse over opposite. So that's going to be root 2 over 1, which is root 2. Starting to get the hang of this? We'll do one more together, sine 5 pi or 7 pi over 6, and then you're going to do the last one on your own. So how do we start? Step 1. Ian, what do you want to do first?
180 divided by 6.
Which is?
30.
Yep, times 7. Yep. So we're going to find the sine of 210. Are they feeding you answers back there?
Well, I did the first one. I just didn't want to technically calculate.
Okay. So we're finding the sine of 210. So here's our circle. We know that's 90, that's 180, that's 270. So 210 is going to be somewhere between 180 and 270. Perpendicular goes straight up, butterfly bow tie. Now, see that angle right there? That's between 180 and 210. So that's a 30. That one down there is 60. I don't care about that one. I need to be in the triangle. The 30 is the one I want. So I do have a 30, 60, 90 triangle. And there are the sides. What's negative? Never the hypotenuse. What about those other numbers? They're both negative. Left and down. Boys and girls, when you move left or down, that's negative. We want what? The sine? Opposite over hypotenuse. The answer this time is -1/2. Opposite hypotenuse. All right, we're doing one on your own. Yep, everybody get started on cotangent 5 pi over 3. See how far you can get with that. Cotangent 5 pi over 3. You know what steps to do. Do each step. Alright, did you get it changed to degrees? You may not be done yet, but let's at least get the first few steps to make sure you're on the right track. You got this changed to degrees? How many degrees did you say? 300. Anybody have a question about how we got 300? Alright, so then you do your circle, hopefully. And you got 90 and 180 and 270 and 360. So did you put 300 down here? And your perpendicular goes straight up because we do butterfly bow ties. And then you got a 300 and a 360 making this angle right here. That angle right there is made by a 300 and a 360. So how big is it? It's a 60. That is super important, kids. Please take note of that. That's a 60-degree angle because you're going from 300 to 360. So this is root 3 and this is 1 and that's 2. Those are memorized. Did you make anything negative? The root 3, because the 1 went right, but the root 3 went down. Now cotangent, alright? So lots of things are going through your mind. One is, it's the reciprocal of the tangent. So tangent, so katoa. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. So adjacent over opposite is the answer. So adjacent over opposite is 1 over negative root 3, which is negative root 3 over 3. How many of you finished that before I started talking and got that all done? Good job. Because now I'm going to throw in a tiny little glitch. Okay? Let's look at the next page. It's basically the same thing. I've drawn the same circle, but let's look at that angle and talk about what the little glitch is I've thrown in. I've said find the sine of 90, also the cosine and the tangent. So we have 3 problems in one. But basically, our angle is 90 degrees. All right, so what's the glitch about that? It's straight up. It's on the axis. See, didn't all of our other angles end up sticking out, you know, to make the butterfly? Yeah. Okay. You can't make a butterfly in this situation. It's just not possible. So how are we going to handle this problem? Well, we have to do it differently because we can't make the butterfly. So what I want you to do, you got your circle drawn, you know your angle is right here. I want you to let the radius of the circle be 1. Just always let it be 1. Now, not if it's jutting out. If it's jutting out, it'll come out to be whatever it is with your special triangles. But if it's on an axis, I want you to draw your circle with a radius of 1. Now, what would be this point? If the radius was 1, you can tell me what that point is. What is that point? 0, comma 1. That would be the point 0, comma 1. Right? We went straight up. X is 0, Y is 1. Agreed? Now, that's an X value. So X is 0, Y is 1, and R is 1. R is the radius. It's always going to be 1 if you're on a line. Now, I want, first of all, the sign. So I have to remember not SOHCAHTOA, but the other definitions. They're called the circular definitions. The circular definition for sine is Y over R. Now, don't look at me like I'm talking crazy. That's on your memorization sheet. You need to know that sine is Y over R in order to do this problem. Because look, I've got my Y, I've got my R, so Y over R would be 1 over 1, which is 1. The sine of 90 is 1. Now, what's the cosine of 90? It'd be X over R, and X over R, look at your X's, Y's, and R's, X over R would be 0 over 1, which is 0. And Y over R is, Y over R, I did that one. Yeah, I'm doing Y over X, I'm sorry. Tangent is Y over X, which is 1 over 0, which is undefined. So we looked at one like that yesterday or the day before. All right, let's do the next one, because it's going to be the same thing. Negative 180. We need the sine, cosine, and tangent of negative 180. Do you know where negative 180 is on the circle? It's negative, so here is negative 90. Remember, you start here. Here's negative 90. Wouldn't this be negative 180 right here?
Yeah.
So it is right on the line. No butterfly bow tie. It is right on the line. So we're going to let the radius be 1. If the radius is 1, what are the coordinates of that point? Negative 1, comma 0. Perfect. So X is negative 1 and Y is 0. Here's the origin. You backed up 1 unit. So negative 1, comma 0. So now we can fill them in. Once you've figured out X, Y, and R, you're golden. Sine, what's sine? Y over R. So Y over R, 0 over 1 is 0. What's cosine? X over R, negative 1 over 1, negative 1. Tangent, Y over X, 0 over negative 1, which is 0. Remember, 0 on top is 0, and 0 on the bottom is undefined. You're saying, oh my gosh, Miss Ford, there's so much to remember. Yes, there is. I'm sorry. It just is. Sine 3 pi over 2, cosine 3 pi over 2, and tangent 3 pi over 2. What might you want to do with this one first? Get the degrees for that. So instead of 3 pi over 2, we might think of that as what? 270. Everybody okay with that change? So we're going positive now. This is always 0. So positive means go up. So 90, 180, 270. Now we're right down here. Alright, so what do I need to do? Radius is 1. Radius is always positive. But I am going down, Joseph, which means that point will be what? What's x? No, x is 0. Didn't go anywhere sideways. X is 0, but y is -1. The radius will always be positive in every problem that you do, any kind. Even the ones where it juts out, makes the butterfly bow tie, the radius or the hypotenuse will always be positive. I'm going straight down. Write x and y and r. So what's x? 0. Y is -1 and r is 1. So here we go. Sine y over r. Cosine x over r. You following along? Tangent y over x. Undefined. Alright, let's do the last one on your own. Now the angle is 0. The angle is 0. Which means you're going to draw it just like this, right? That's 0. That's the starting point. So everybody's working on this. You're finding the sine, cosine, and tangent of 0. The radius is 1. What did you get for x and y over here? What's x? Oh, there's no negative there.
0.
X is 1 and y is 0. Boys and girls, pretend you're plotting this point. You start at the origin. You went over 1 and up 0. Right? So the point is 1, 0. If you're going right, it's positive. So 1 and 0. What'd you get for the sine? 0 over 1, which is 0. What'd you get for the cosine? 1 over 1, which is 1. And what'd you get for the tangent? 0 over 1, which is 0. Remember, tangent is y over x. Good? All right, we got a lot accomplished. We're going to do one more section, then we'll be ready to graph on Monday. Or Tuesday, I guess. Unless you want to come in Monday.
Nah, you good.
I'll be here.
That's cool. I won't.
All right. Use the given to find the desired values. Oh my gosh, this looks so complicated. All right, so here's what we're finding. We're going to find the sine and the cotangent. That's what we're finding. Now, what they told me was that the cosine is a positive 2/3. Okay, try to stay with me. 10 more minutes. The cosine is a positive 2/3, but the tangent is a negative number. Now, when I say cosine is a positive 2/3, this is the picture I would like to draw. Now, don't draw that picture. It's wrong. Why is it wrong? Well, first of all, the cosine is 2/3. That part's right. But would the tangent be negative? No, because in quadrant 1, everything is positive. So shoot, where am I going to draw this triangle so that that would still be a positive 2, but that would be a negative number? Where would I draw that?
3.
Down. Wouldn't I just go this way? And say I'm going to go over 2, this can still be 3, but now this will be a negative number, which makes my tangent negative. All right, let's find that number. How would we go about finding that missing number? Pythagorean theorem. So can you do the Pythagorean theorem and tell me what that would be? Root 5. Now, how did she get root 5? She took 9 minus 4, and then the square root. Now, I want the sign. These are what I want right here. I want the sign. Look at that picture. What's the sign? Negative root 5 over 3. Remember, kids, you always gauge off this angle, the one at the origin. So this is opposite, this is hypotenuse, this is adjacent. What about cotangent? Well, the tangent is opposite over adjacent, so the cotangent would be 2 over negative root 5. Negative 2 root 5 over 5. That is a tough problem. You guys did a great job on it. Oh, quit whining. Quit whining. All right, just think. You get 3 days away from me. I know. It
That's
makes
tragic.
me sad that you guys are full of unsure.
That's so
All right,
wild.
so here we go.
Yes.
Here we go. Here's another one. It says the sine, or no. It says we're going to find the secant and the tangent. Those are going to be our questions we're going to answer. And they say the sine is 1/5. Okay, I want to draw this picture. Do not draw this picture though, because it's wrong. This said the sine is 1/5. But the cosine has to be negative. The problem says the cosine has to be negative. Now you guys, nothing's negative in quadrant 1. So I'm in the wrong quadrant. So I need to draw another triangle where the opposite side is 1 and the hypotenuse is 5. Where would that be? Flip it this way this time. Go this way. Would this still be 1 and this still be 5? And now, when I figure it out, that number will be negative? All right, so let's figure it out. What's that number going to be? What? Not root 26. Be careful. That's the hypotenuse. So it's actually going to be the square root of 24, which is 2 root 6 when you break it down. Because 24 is 4 times 6. Remember how you do that? I don't know, Mr. Miller talks about somebody escaping or... Yeah, something like that, yeah. So you got 2 times 2 times 6. So one of those guys escapes or something. I don't want to confuse you. I don't know exactly what he talks about. But you know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. So this is going to be 2 radical 6. So now I can answer the questions. Secant. All right, wait. Secant is reciprocal of cosine. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So secant will be hypotenuse over adjacent. So hypotenuse over adjacent. Oh, bummer. So I'm going to multiply by root 6. Got to multiply by the radical part. That's the issue. The radical is the issue. What do you get when you times these two together? 6. But there's already a 2 there. So that's going to be 12 on the bottom. So 5 root 6 over negative 12. It's a little bit tricky, a little bit different. Unfortunately, tangent's going to work the same way because tangent's going to be 1 over negative 2 root 6. So we'll multiply by root 6. These two make a 6. Like 6 times 2, there's your 12. All right, got one more and then we're done. We want to find the tangent and the secant. Oh, cosecant, thank you, cosecant. That makes a difference, doesn't it? Now, I need the cosine to be negative. 2 or 3/5. Negative 3/5 on the cosine. Well, now wait a second. If I draw my picture here, 3/5, is that a negative cosine? No, because don't I need this number to be negative? It says it's negative 3/5. So where could I draw it so that that number would be negative? Not there. Over here. Robbie's pointing over here. He says, okay, draw it over here, Mrs. Ford, because then the cosine will be negative. Would you agree with me? All right, let's do the Pythagorean theorem. What would this missing side be? It would be positive. Somebody said positive, and you're right. Positive what? 4? 25 minus 9. Remember, you're squaring everything. 25 minus 9, 16. Square root's 4. Now that's lovely, but it's wrong. Because look at the problem. The problem says we need the tangent to be positive. What is the value of the tangent in the picture I drew? 4 over negative 3. Shoot. I need this 3 to be negative, but I need the tangent to turn out positive.
Flip it down.
Oh, flip it down. Deshani, you are awesome.
Thank you.
Because if I flip it down, this 4 becomes negative 4. And now, when I do my tangent, I'm going to move the 3 up here. When I do my tangent, what happens? I get negative 4 over negative 3, which is positive. So finally, I have the right triangle, the correct triangle. Everything matches. Now I can answer the question. The tangent, you already told me, is 4/3. What's the cosecant?
Negative 5.
The cosecant is negative 5/4. For those of you that aren't quite that fast, it's reciprocal of sine. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So we are looking for hypotenuse over opposite, which is 5 over negative 4. Wow.
Crazy stuff.
That is awesome. Now, I'm going to do something right now so that I don't forget. I'm going to write a quick quiz for Tuesday. No. It's going to have, you don't have time to do it now. It's going to have 2 problems on it. Okay? So the 2 problems, Robbie says I'm going to forget over the weekend. We'll do a quick practice before we take it. But in real quick practice. But in preparation, here are the 2 problems I'm going to put on the quiz. One of them is going to be, here's a light pole. And there is a bird on the top of the light pole, looking down at a beetle on the ground. Oh, not B and B, so there's my beetle down there on the ground. The angle of elevation is 10 degrees. The bird bird and the beetle are 15 yards apart. How tall is the light pole? Remember doing those the other day? You're gonna have a question like that. That needs a calculator. Make sure you have a calculator. You would say sine 10 equals x over 15. And then x equals 15 sine 10. Then you would type it into your calculator and get the answer. Got it?